Hello and welcome to Wild Soul Gatherings. I'm Dr. Sandra Marie and I'll be your host for Happy Hour for the Spiritually Curious. I'm very grateful for all you wild souls out there who've decided to join us today. I'm really excited for our listeners to be able to meet our guests who will be joining us, and they will each be sharing their experiences, their unique gifts and insights, and we will be discussing the many different aspects of spirituality. A few of the topics will be energy healing modalities, Reiki, quantum physics, mediumship, and many more. In addition to our many guests who will be joining us on Happy Hour for the Spiritually Curious, we will also be hosting a weekly show on astrology. Penny Petties, our astrology coach, will co-host a weekly show that really takes astrology to a new level. To learn more about us, go to our website, wildsoulsgathering.com. We would love to hear from you. You can contact us via email or through our website. Our email is wildsoulsgathering@gmail.com. In the tradition of Happy Hour, cheers to some new insights, peace, revitalization, and maybe an aha moment that will positively influence your life. Before we start today's show, I would like to add a quick disclaimer that the first two episodes of the podcast has some inaccurate information for context information for our guest. For the most updated information, please check the show notes. It will have the latest and greatest and most correct information, and you can also go to our website. That being said, let's get started. Hi, this is Dr. Sandra Marie, your host for the Wild Soul Gatherings podcast. Produced by Wild Soul Productions, where the heavens and earth get together. Today in the room we have our production manager, LJ, who's working in the background, and we have our guest, Mark Robinson, owner of Hazy Blue Healings. We're really excited to be a part of your lives and a part of your wild soul journeys. It's sort of an exciting day to start this new journey. You know, we've had the whole 2020 debacle going on with all the energies. Now it's 2021. We've had this new moon eclipse with all this energy. It feels like there's a lot of energy and emotion going on. And then we're actually recording our first episode. So we're pretty excited about that.
I'm happy to be here and be a part of this. Thank you for the invitation.
Excited to have you here. So I know that you have been involved in energy healing and different energy modalities for quite a few decades now, and you have a pretty unique modality that you use. Can you share with the readers a little bit about Hazy Blue Healing?
It is an energy work. I work with a pendulum to access the divine energies that everybody has access to. Different channelers or different empaths have different ways of making that connection, and I use a pendulum. I see at some point that that's going to have to go to the wayside because I usually know where the pendulum is going to lead me at this point. So, but I'm comfortable with it, and it seems to do the job.
Awesome. So, I spent a lot of my time trying to understand my purpose here on the earth and sort of where I fit in and how all this works. So I've done a lot of time searching, and I've actually had the opportunity to experience some of your pendulum work, which I'll be honest with you, initially I found quite odd, but I will have to admit it was very effective, and the different things that were rooted out in the issues were pretty spot on. So it was just another experience to enjoy. And that's sort of what this podcast is about, is what I have learned on my many, many journeys, which I'm sure we'll be sharing as we get to know each other. And I'm really excited to get to know our listeners a little bit more, too, and some of their journeys. There's so many different ways to walk the path, and they look so different. But it seems like the paths all lead to a very similar place. Have you experienced that, Mark?
Absolutely. And it's all experiential, and everybody's having different experiences. Everybody has different goals and lessons that they've set out to learn in this life. And the universe is always guiding us to meet certain benchmarks at certain times to make sure we progress on our paths.
Okay, and I know it looks very different for different people, and I can honestly say that it looks very different for me. Sometimes it seems moment to moment, but certainly over the years, the path and the journey has been very different.
Well, it's it's all the same thing. It's just people's different approaches to it, whatever they're comfortable with, or whatever their gifts lie, how they make their connections. But basically, we're all big part of we're one universe. We're one big part of a huge matrix, and we're all connected energetically, and we're just plugging into each other to access information that's there for the asking. I think the clue is that you have to ask. It's not going to happen for you. You have to be proactive in the activity of connecting and healing. So it is personally driven, and you can take it in whatever direction you want to go in and make it look like anything you want it to look like.
So recently I had someone tell me that they felt, we talk a lot about the path and the journey and the soul path and all those kinds of things, that it was more experiential. Do you feel there's a differentiation with that, or it's just a different way of exploring it?
Everybody has a unique way to explore it, and everybody needs to give themselves permission and the freedom to do those explorations, and try and let go of any judgment that may hold them back from their progress.
I would totally agree that the letting go of judgments is a big deal, and certainly feeling free to change directions in your paths. And even, I can tell you in my experiences, a lot of times what I thought and was so sure was the truth, as I've learned more and I've grown more and I exposed myself to different modalities, people, readings, teachings, and just connected innately more with spirit on a one-to-one, that those truths changed to different truths. Have you ever experienced that?
Yes, and I think everybody is. That's the process. One thing leads to another. Sometimes it's hard to just jump from A to Z. You have to go through all the points and destinations in between, and the universe guides you and gifts you with what you're able to assimilate.
So for our listeners out there, everyone's on a different level and a different area. Some people are just sort of having aha moments and they're just starting to learn, and some people are more searching, some are more curious, or in different experiences. I can tell you I've had so many epiphanies in life, but one that obviously was very life-changing for me was I woke up one morning and literally, I'm going to say, had a message, will be the term that I use, that said I needed to become a Reiki master. Well, this was back in, I believe, the early 90s, and I was like, okay. And I just couldn't let go of it. It was innately in me. Like, I had never heard the term Reiki before. I didn't know what it was. I was trying to even look it up, like, how do you spell it? At that time, there was nothing on the internet about it. There was nothing mainstream. It was like something that I really searched for. And it took a lot of work, and it was interesting how things magically or synchronously came into my life. And I could not let go of it until years down the road, where I found a Reiki course. I found a Reiki family. I hit the level 1, the level 2, and I finally became a Reiki master. So I think that it can be sort of confusing, because at the time I wasn't sure that I, wasn't honestly going crazy. Like, where did this come from? And how did I get this message? And was this really a message? And what did this all mean? Do you have some insights for other people that might be going through that?
I absolutely know and understand that we're all divinely guided. And the universe will not let up on you until you make the decisions and adjustments and lessons and evolutions and epiphanies that you're destined to make. So you can either avoid it and struggle with it and to have it take years, or you can open up to it and learn to trust that voice inside of you that's guiding you and make it a more fun, pleasant, and expedient experience. It sounds to me like you struggled with it for a bit in the beginning before you trusted yourself and opened up to it.
I would say that that's an understatement because I was really confused by it. And I will honestly say for years, and I think that I'm a little bit past it now, I have always been like the definition of the doubting Thomas, right? So I learned stuff, I know it, I believe it, but I'm not exactly sure is this really right? Like, so even when it comes to something that's pretty mainstream now, like Reiki, you know, they're saying this energy is coming from your hands and this heat. And I remember practicing on my mother, and she'd be like, your hands are burning my ears. And I'm like, what are you talking about? And then I would play with kids in the room because they said that you should be able to shoot it from your hands. And I thought, this just doesn't make sense. It can't possibly be real. And like the kids would turn around and they would say, what are you doing to me? And I'd be, nothing. And then they would turn around and they would play again, and I would try it. And then I would look at my hands and I'd be like, oh my God, I think I do have some kind of power and this is working. And I can tell you, I have like multiple stories of different things with that. But most recently, because it's been decades journey for sure, is I have learned to just succumb to it. Like, you know, if I'm getting some kind of a intuitive push is what I call it, or something like that, I've learned much more like, okay, just go with it because this seems crazy, but obviously this is what you need to do, and you're not going to have peace until you do it.
So is that working for you now? That trusting what messages you're getting and experiencing them and feeling them and drawing conclusions?
Well, actually it is, and that is a big part of what Wild Soul Gatherings is about, is I have just really been compelled to create something to reach out to people who seem to be in like-minded kind of ways and are trying to figure this all out and expose them to all the different modalities and experiences and books and literature and different ways there are to learn and experience things out there to help them find their one thing that's going to connect with them in this movement, in this particular moment, and then move them forward.
Well, I think that you're going to fill an important niche that needs to be filled. There are so many souls that have been sleepwalking through their lives up until now. And the energy has changed so significantly in the past decade. And now that energy is supporting the awakening of individuals, and they're having experiences that they don't understand. And they need somebody to step in and get them through spirituality 101, so to speak, get them up to speed, so they can experience the world in a much different way than they were before, and realize how powerful they truly are, and with that power, what they're capable of manifesting in their lives. So I think there's an important need for that in this moment, and I'm so happy you're doing this.
I'm really excited. We actually have a website. It's called Wild Soul Gatherings website.
Yes, I've seen some of the construction of it. Is that very impressive?
.com?
Yeah, okay. And that would be our producer in the background, LJ. Yeah, it is wildsoulgathering.com. And actually, our tagline on that is swap burning out for building a fire within. So we'll talk a little bit more as, you know, we get to know our listeners. But I do want to also be able to provide concrete things for people to be out there. But I also want to hear back from people and their experiences and their journey. Lots of things to go on. I know people talk a lot about religion and spirituality and the differences with that. And a lot of people have a lot of emotions and feelings about that, obviously. So for me personally, I have found that religion was a good jumping point for me, but then I felt like I outgrew it. And then that's where, you know, I moved into a different direction. So, you know, there is no right and wrong with this.
No,
and there's
not.
So many different ways to go. You know, one of the things that's interesting is a lot of people, I think, would be surprised to know that there has been a lot of information and teachers and, well, obviously there's been people out there for thousands of years, but in our more recent culture in the 80s, 70s, and the 80s, and I know we had been talking about a book called The Celestine Prophecies, and is that from the 80s or the 70s? I don't recall.
Early 90s.
Oh, well, there you go. So you made a comment in that it came up, and because it was interesting, a lot of different things from the more recent past 20, 30 years seems to be resurfacing itself up in cultures and teachings. And you were talking about the Celestine Prophecies, and I think that you made a very interesting epiphany when you talked to me, because you said that you've read over the prophecies, over the years, but for some reason they seemed absolutely more pertinent and real to you today than they did when they first came out.
It's interesting. I'm older. I've been around since the 50s, and I've watched this evolution, slowly take root and now finally gaining speed. And the information came out slowly. Again, I think we're given to it at a pace where we can assimilate it and understand it and grasp it. And in the 70s and 80s, this was definitely new material that the masses had not heard before. And it went contrary to everything that we experienced and believed up until that point. It really took us into a whole different universe, and that was the energetic world. And there were so many books that have crossed my path over the decades, and this was an important one for me. It was really meaningful. It really took my understanding of our experience to an energetic level. And again, I suppose, when I think back on it now, kind of set the foundation for my energy work that came later. And I had forgotten about the book. At the time, it was very important. They even made a movie about it. I remember that. And the souls that were evolving at the time, we were called New Agers back then, embraced it. But it was such a small movement back then. And so much has come since that it's taking things to all new levels. And a friend of mine just sent me a random text a couple weeks ago referring back to the Celestine Prophecy, and was like, oh my God, I remember that. And so I got out the insights and I read them, and that's when I realized that what was being prophesized and taught to us back in the 90s had now been born and had become our experiential reality. And I just, it's interesting how the seeds were planted way back then, and we nurtured them and then kind of walked away and let them grow. And now that it's all maturated and we can go back to it and harvest it. And I can't think of the word when you harvest food and turn it, or harvest something from the fields and turn it into nutrition. That's the word I was looking for.
Well, I'm saying producer LJ's looking at you with that, like, what the?
I was lost.
So now we're in a place where we're witnessing it all playing out in our reality. It's no longer a prophecy. And from somebody who's been there and has the luxury to witness it now, it is surely something to behold, and it makes me very happy. And again, this movement is growing in numbers, and now we have the wonderful place, Wild Sword Gatherings, where we can get together and talk about things like that and reawaken people, and maybe they can take this, digest it, and assimilate it into their lives. much faster and quicker than we were able to do 30 years ago.
So that's great. I really appreciate that. So one of the big tenets of Wild Soul gatherings is to step away from this external world, which has gotten really intense, right? So we have the dichotomy of the amazingness of the internet, of smartphones, the ability to communicate, the ability to be present in so many different places while not being present at all, right? So everyone's talked about, being in an airport or being at a restaurant and there's a table full of people and they're all on some kind of electronic device and there's no actual, that personal communication that existed before those things happen, right? So with Wild Soul gatherings, one of the basic tenets of that is moving away and sort of stepping away from all the external things in life that actually pull us away from who we are. Like, we get lost in all of that, right? And then we lose ourself with it. And we want to create an environment where people can be quiet, they can reconnect with nature, they can refocus. So how do you find your spiritual center? How do you maintain, with all this stimuli and all the drama of the world, to maintain a spiritual core?
Well, I'm not then, not now, nor will I ever be a real techie kind of person. I've never embraced it. I find it very useful, and I'm just amazed at the information train that it's created. So, if you want to know something, it's out there for the asking, and that's truly wonderful. But I think for the most part, it's just turned into a big distraction to keep the masses hypnotized and unfocused. And for me personally, nature has always been my touchstone, be it a forest that I'm walking through or a beach where I'm watching a sunset. When I'm with nature, my energy is so easily harmonized to the planet, and I'm able to make those divine connections, and that's where I find my center and focus and connection. And again, wild gatherings out in 200 acres of southern Ohio. Yeah. I think that's going to be a wonderful place for people to come and decompress and reconnect with all the energies that are there, and hopefully that will ignite the energies within them.
Well, thank you, and we're really excited about that. That's something that's actually just in the process of being created. We'll share more about sort of some of that journey on our website. Been searching for a farm, a place to build this center for people to actually physically be able to come to, not only just be able to experience this with the podcast. So I know for me, like, people talk about that monkey mind, like, your brain's going 100 miles an hour, and, my brain multitasks on 5-6 different things all the time, right? So everyone talks about meditation, right? To be spiritual, you have to meditate to connect. And meditation for me can be a chore. Like, it took me years to figure out what meditation was, how to meditate, what it's supposed to look like, and really what it was all about, only to find out it was, for me, none of those things. So, like you said, in the media, the good parts about it, and I certainly have taken huge advantage of this, is there's books, there's podcasts, there are spiritual teachers, there's online courses, there's so many different things that you can do to experience, because there's so many different ways to come at it. And the gift for me was being able to switch over from a searching mentality to just being curious and experiencing it all and actually taking it in and enjoying it. So I'm always interested to ask people how they find their spiritual center and how they disconnect. So stepping away, nature for sure works for me. Also both being out there. But the whole idea of not having meditation be a lot of work and stress, and letting go and really just sitting and being able to be quiet, to connect and let go of that. And I'll be quite honest, it's still in its infancy in an area that I work in, although I have learned to connect with the divine in a lot of different ways. And we'll get into that in different episodes and shows that we talk about for sure. I know for our next show, we're going to have Penny. She is a coach who uses astrology. So she's actually an astrological coach that she uses both to coach people and give them some insights about what's going on in their life, as well as some direction. I have seen her use it with couples. I've seen her use it within families. She really takes astrology to a whole different direction. So we'll be really excited for her, and that'll be something to look forward in one of our future shows.
But that sounds wonderful to me. Astrology has always been an interest of me. I do believe the planets kind of give us a blueprint for our particular lives and events in our lives and institutions. Everything has an astrological chart. And when you put them together, you can see how universal events, world events, global events, friends and family events, romantic partner events relate to you personally and make your experience sort of unique. I'm sure she's just going to knock the socks off everybody. Astrology usually does, because with my experience of it, it's always spot on.
Okay. And I understand that apparently there's a lot going on out there that is directly affecting everything that's going on globally. So more to come on that. I myself am pretty interested to hear what she has to say. So any other pearls of wisdom or any other thoughts that you would like to share to our listeners, or someone who's just trying to figure this out and trying to figure out where they fit in?
You know, as long as you're incarnated on the earth and in a physical body, there's something more to experience, something more to learn, something more to evolve to. It really gives purpose and meaning to getting out of bed every morning. Even at this point, I'm having major epiphanies that I really didn't ponder or think about or could grasp prior to this point. But again, the energies that we're working with are so powerful and supportive that even I'm having more and more aha moments. And I think the most important thing to keep in mind that this isn't a quest for something outside of yourself. Everything you have and will ever need is on the inside of you. And you need to open up and make that strong connection with your own personal divine and learn to trust the information that you're getting back. And I always, through my whole spiritual quest, whatever medium that I was working with or information that I was getting, I always innately just trusted my intuition. And when I say intuition, I'm going to say my visceral response to something. If I read something or something told me something, I would see how that would feel to me. And if it felt right, I went with it, and that became part of my story. And if it didn't feel right, I didn't try and force it. I walked away from it. And I always had the understanding that the universe would gift me what I needed when I needed it. So it's not something to be forced. It's something to relax into. That's why meditation is such a wonderful tool with making that connection. And again, you're creating this wild-souled gathering retreat. That's going to be a perfect place to quiet your mind and go inward and introduce yourself to yourself.
Thank you. I like that. And also to commune with other people and share stories and journeys. There's a lot to be said for that, for sure.
So before we go, I know that we will have the website, the Instagram, and Mark's information in the show notes. But before we sign off here, Mark, if you want to plug your website And Sandra, Dr. Sandra Marie, if you want to give the website again and the Instagram.
Awesome.
hazybluehealing.com is still out there with all the information about my history, my path, and how I evolved, and how I apply that to doing energetic healing work on others. So that would definitely be worth clicking into.
And is there contact information on that website if they want to schedule an appointment with you?
Yes, there is.
Perfect.
And we have wildsoulgatheringplace.com. It is our website. We are also in the process of putting together a Facebook page and an Instagram. So there's more to come with that. And as Mark mentioned to you, we are in the process of actually at this time purchasing a piece of property for the physical Wild Soul Gathering place that is going to be coming. And I am really excited to actually share with all of our listeners out there that journey as it comes into fruition, because there will be some divine pushes that'll go different directions, and we do know that the divine does have a sense of humor, so there will be some amusing stories to share with that, I'm sure. But I am very grateful for everyone taking the time out of their days to actually listen, get to know us, and until we meet again, please take time to embrace your wild soul. I'd like to thank our guests for joining us for this episode of Wild Souls Gatherings Happy Hour for the Spiritually Curious. To find out more about our guests, how to contact them, or detail on this episode, please see our show notes. You can also visit us at our website, wildsoulsgathering.com. We would love to hear from our visitors what you thought of this show, what you would like to see and hear in the future, questions you may have. You can contact us at wildsoulsgathering@gmail.com or visit us on our Facebook page, Wild Souls Gathering Podcast. This is your host, Dr. Sandra Marie, sending each of you peace and love. Until we meet again, embrace your wild soul.